Dracarys.
Hello everyone, Magu is here. From today, I'm going back to my old business and starting my full commentary on Game of Thrones. I'll try my best to finish watching all 8 seasons before New Year's Day 2025. Game of Thrones is adapted from the novels of American author George R.R. Martin, A Song of Ice and Fire. The novel series is planned to have 7 books, and 5 have been completed. Actually, the 5th book was published back in 2011. 13 years have passed since then, and books 6 and 7 are still nowhere in sight. The novels are not finished, but the TV series has already concluded. You don't need me to tell you how the ending turned out. The scores speak for themselves. The first 7 seasons of Game of Thrones averaged 9.45 on Dubon, while the 8th season got a 6.0. This is mainly the screenwriter's fault. The first 4 seasons of the TV series largely followed the original work. But from the 5th season, the screenwriters started taking liberties. By the 8th season, the screenwriters completely went off the rails, leading to a legendary show ending in a disgraceful mess. This makes viewers even more eager for George R.R. Martin to update the remaining 2 books soon, so we can cleanse our eyes with a better ending. Of course, even with the bad ending, Game of Thrones is still a legendary show. Its historical status in film remains top tier. So now, let's dive into the magical world of Ice and Fire. Full of sex, violence, human darkness, and human glory. First, I'll introduce the basic settings of the world of Ice and Fire. If you already know, you can skip to 4 minutes and 10 seconds to go directly to the plot. The world of Ice and Fire has land, sea, and islands. The land is mainly divided into 4 continents, Westeros, Essos. The other 2 continents can be ignored because the main storyline of Game of Thrones takes place in Westeros and Essos. For a long time, Westeros was divided into 7 great kingdoms. It was thus simply referred to as the 7 kingdoms. Which are the 7 kingdoms? I'll add more details later. One day, the eastern continent, Essos, had a family that could ride dragons. The Targaryens, or Dragon House for short, they collectively migrated to an island east of Westeros, later named Dragonstone. 100 years later, the then head of House Targaryen, Aegon Targaryen, had a dream. He dreamt that winter was coming, and the others would attack from the north. The entire 7 kingdoms would face an existential crisis. And to resolve the crisis, someone needed to unite the 7 kingdoms and rally them to fight against the external threat. For this, Aegon launched the War of Conquest against the 7 kingdoms. In less than 2 years, with the help of dragons, Aegon conquered 6 of the 7 kingdoms. Only the southernmost kingdom of Dorne remained unconquered. And the 7 kingdoms' largest religion, the High Septon of the Faith of the 7, decided to surrender. He crowned Aegon as the ruler of the 7 kingdoms and protector of the realm. Thus, Aegon nominally united the 7 kingdoms, becoming Westeros' first dragon emperor. Aegon had his dragon, Balerion the Black melt the swords of his enemies into an iron chair, named the Iron Throne, representing the supreme power of Westeros. The calendar system of the Ice and Fire world was also unified from then on. This year was recorded as 1 AC, Aegon's conquest. Currently, the recorded history of the Ice and Fire world spans over 10,000 years BC and 300 years AC. In 283 AC, a major event occurred, a change of dynasty. The 17th Targaryen emperor stepped down, and House Baratheon took power. The Baratheon family sigil is a stag. They are often referred to as Stag House. The founder of the Stag House was Robert Baratheon. He had 1/8 Targaryen blood, so it was still an internal transfer of power. Robert and his allies launched a coup. The causes and process of Robert's rebellion, for short, are not systematically explained in the main show, but they are very important for understanding the main show. This part of the content, I will supplement it at the appropriate time. Now, it's the 16th year of Robert's reign, which is 298 AC. The story of Game of Thrones officially begins. 3 black-clad soldiers passed through a tunnel and entered the forest to patrol. On the way, they encountered a monster. 2 soldiers were beheaded by the monster, and only one miraculously survived. The monster is the other that Dragon Emperor Aegon dreamt of. Others are magical creatures. Their origin is unknown in the books. In the show, let's not discuss it yet. The others last appeared 8,000 years ago. They invaded Westeros from the land of always winter in the north. Invading Westeros, and converting them into their puppets, called whites. Westeros was devastated for a time. The natives here, the children of the forest, and the first immigrants to Westeros, the first men, joined forces to fight the enemy. Eventually, they drove the others back to their homeland. Humans built a tall wall in the north, named the Wall. At the same time, the Night's Watch was established to guard this place, to defend against the return of the others. The 3 black-clad soldiers just now were Night's Watchmen. But for 8,000 years, the others disappeared without a trace, never reappearing. The Night's Watch's scale gradually shrank, and their status gradually declined. Their defensive target also changed from others to wildlings. Wildlings are also humans, just separated beyond the wall. Now, the others have reappeared, and humanity will once again face disaster. But don't worry. It will be a long time before the others officially make their move. The director used the others to start mainly to tell the audience that the entire Westeros has a common enemy. The others. But the others are an external conflict, not the focus of this show. The show's focus is humanity's internal conflicts. After all, the show is called Game of Thrones. Not the others are coming. This game of power mainly involves 4 major family players. Their house sigils are all in the opening logo. Dragon House, Targaryen; Lion House, Lannister; Stag House, Baratheon; Wolf House, Stark. How will these 4 great families play their cards? Who will be the final winner? Let's find out together as the story unfolds. Will, who narrowly escaped death, fled south of the wall, into the territory of the north, one of the 7 kingdoms. At this point in the show, the 7 kingdoms are already united. But they are still called the 7 kingdoms. It can be understood as a federation. The capital of the north is Winterfell. The ruling family is Stark. Their sigil is the dire wolf. That's right. Stark is one of the 4 major players in Game of Thrones. The current Wolf King of House Stark is Eddard Stark. He is usually called Wolf Dad. Wolf Dad's wife is Catelyn Tully. She is usually called Cat Aunt. The couple has 7 children, 5 sons and 2 daughters. Who are they? I'll tell you in a bit. Wolf Dad received a report that a Night's Watchman had trespassed. A Night's Watchman who deserts, violates the laws of the 7 kingdoms, and is punishable by death. Although the Night's Watch is not under the jurisdiction of the North, they only belong to the 7 kingdoms. But Wolf Dad, as the Warden of the North, holds the power to execute. He has the authority to execute. So, in the name of King Robert, he beheaded Will. The audience knows Will wasn't a deserter. He wanted to be a whistleblower about the others, but no one believed him. On the way back to the castle, the Stark family encountered the carcasses of 2 animals, a stag and a dire wolf. Both the stag and the wolf were dead. This hinted that these 2 families, in the upcoming Game of Power, might face misfortune. The dire wolf left behind 6 pups. Wolf Dad gave them to his 6 children. One child didn't receive one. He is Wolf Dad's foster son, named Theon Greyjoy. Theon's hometown is the Iron Islands. His father, Balon Greyjoy, rebelled against House Baratheon 9 years ago. The rebellion failed. Balon's eldest and second sons were all killed in battle. To prevent Balon from rebelling again, Wolf Dad, on behalf of House fostered Balon's youngest son, Theon. So, although Theon was a foster son, he was essentially a hostage. However, the Stark family was treated Theon with great care, not discriminating against him. In contrast, Wolf Dad's other son, his bastard son, Jon Snow, had a tougher time. After all, being a bastard, his very existence, was an injury to his legal wife, Cat Aunt. So Snow grew up under Cat Aunt's cold gaze. He got along quite well with his siblings. But because of Cat Aunt, Snow always wanted to leave House Stark and join the Night's Watch. We've already met 2 of the 7 Stark children. Easy to remember, right? That day, the North welcomed an honored guest, King Robert. Oh Grace, you've got fat. Ha 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 ha. Robert and Wolf Dad are both lord and vassal and brothers. Robert came this time to invite Wolf Dad to become his Hand of the King, also known as the King's Hand. A month ago, the former Hand, Jon Arryn, let's call him Old Arryn, suddenly passed away. Robert desperately needed someone. There are many capable people, but there's only one person Robert absolutely trusts, Wolf Dad. So what exactly is the relationship between these 2? I need to add a bit of history. Robert was born in Storm's End in the Stormlands. Wolf Dad was born in Winterfell in the north. Both brothers, when they were 8 or 9 years old, were sent to the Eyrie in the Vale to become the foster sons of the then Lord of the Vale, Duke Jon Arryn of the Eyrie. The Stormlands, the Vale, and the North are all part of the 7 kingdoms. Storm's End and the Eyrie, just like Winterfell, are the capitals of their respective regions. At that time, Old Arryn was in his early 40s and had no children. He treated these 2 brothers as his own sons. Robert and Wolf Dad studied together and fought together. Robert was also betrothed to Wolf Dad's sister. Unexpectedly, one day in 282 AC, Wolf Dad's sister was allegedly kidnapped. The suspected kidnapper was Rhaegar Targaryen, who was the eldest son of Aerys II, the last Targaryen emperor at the time, also known as the Mad King's eldest son. Wolf Dad's elder brother, went to King's Landing, the capital of the Seven Kingdoms, to demand his sister from the Mad King. His arrogant attitude angered the Mad King. The Mad King detained Wolf Dad's elder brother, summoned Wolf Dad's father, and executed both father and son. Then the Mad King ordered old Aaron to hand over his 2 foster sons, meaning Wolf Dad and Robert. Because the Mad King had killed Wolf Dad's father and brother, and the Mad King's son had taken Robert's fiancée. For the Mad King, these 2 young men were future trouble, and had to be eliminated. The Mad King was incompetent and brutal. Old Aaron defied the order, and led his 2 foster sons to raise an army. After more than a year of fighting, the rebel army was victorious. Rhaegar of the Targaryen army was struck by Robert's mounted charge. His guts were shattered by Robert's warhammer. The Mad King was stabbed to death from behind by his own Kingsguard. Robert's rebellion successfully ushered in the Baratheon dynasty. So Wolf Dad and Robert had 3 layers of relationship: adopted brothers, comrades in arms, and soon-to-be brothers-in-law. So, didn't House Targaryen have dragons? How could they have failed? Friends who have watched House of the Dragon should know that House Targaryen experienced a family civil war between 129 and 131 AC, historically known as the Dance of the Dragons. Most of House Targaryen's dragons were wiped out. The last Targaryen dragon died in 153 AC. By the time of the Mad King, House Targaryen had been without dragons for over 130 years. Old Aaron served as hand, helping Robert manage state affairs. Ned found his kidnapped sister. Unfortunately, his sister died shortly after due to complications during childbirth. Many years later, Robert still couldn't forget Ned's sister. So the first thing he did when he came to Winterfell was to visit the Stark family crypt, to pay respects to his deceased fiancée. In my dreams I kill him every night. It's done you grace. To make up for his regrets and strengthen the relationship between the Baratheon Robert and Stark families, a marriage alliance with Ned, specifically, for his eldest son to marry Ned's eldest daughter. Robert's eldest son is named Joffrey Baratheon. He is usually referred to as Joffrey. Ned's eldest daughter is named Sansa Stark. She is usually referred to as Sansa. Given this situation, Ned called and refused. So the marriage was settled. On the chessboard of the Game of Thrones, the Baratheon and Stark families were now allies. Accompanying Robert to Winterfell were 3 other important figures. The first was Robert's wife, Queen Cersei Lannister. She's commonly called Queen Cersei. The Lannister family's ancestral home is Casterly Rock in the Westerlands. Their house sigil is a golden lion. They are the 3rd player in the Game of Thrones. House Lannister. 16 years ago, after Ned's sister died, Robert became single again. On the advice of his foster father, Jon Arryn, Robert married Cersei, the princess of the Westerlands. So why did he marry the princess of the Westerlands in particular? At that time, the North, the Vale, and the Riverlands, along with the Stormlands, had already formed an alliance. If the Westerlands were also brought into the alliance, Robert's Iron Throne would be even more secure. Cersei was stunning, but Robert wasn't interested. On their wedding night, he even called out his former fiancée's name. Cersei originally had some affection for Robert, but she didn't expect him to be so disrespectful. So Cersei let herself go, and her affairs became increasingly brazen. The object of her affair was the second important figure to arrive in Winterfell: Cersei's twin brother, Jaime Lannister. Adultery wasn't the only scandal. What was even more perverse was that Robert's 3 children were all actually Jaime's. Joffrey, like Cersei and Jaime, had golden hair, yet his supposed father had dark hair. Cersei and Jaime's incestuous affair was known only to a very few people, such as Jon Arryn. However, Jon Arryn died suddenly not long after discovering it. So, Cersei and Jaime were certainly suspects in his death. The 3rd important person to arrive in Winterfell was also a Lannister: Cersei and Jaime's younger brother, Tyrion Lannister. Born a dwarf, he's commonly known as the Imp. As soon as Tyrion arrived in Winterfell, he rushed to a brothel. Visiting prostitutes was his greatest pleasure.
Already?
Give me one blessing.
That evening, the Starks butchered pigs and sheep to entertain their guests. Sansa greeted Cersei, and Cersei was very pleased. She said she would treat her future daughter-in-law well. But in her heart, she was thinking of how to best use this pawn to manipulate the Stark family. Jaime stopped Ned, saying that when Ned arrived in the capital, he wanted to have a good match with him. Ned refused. Both men spoke with sharp words, but Ned had the upper hand in terms of presence. For now, it's clear these two have a strained relationship. The reasons will be explained later. After the feast, Ned and Catelyn had a late-night talk. Ned didn't want to become Hand. Catelyn also didn't want Ned to leave home. However, a letter made Ned change his mind. The letter was from Lisa Tully, Jon Arryn's widow and Catelyn's sister. The letter mainly stated 2 points. First, Lisa herself had already left King's Landing with her child and returned to Jon Arryn's ancestral home, the Eyrie in the Vale. Second, Jon Arryn had been murdered by the Lannisters. The Lannisters coveted the throne, and the king's life was in danger. If the situation was true, Ned couldn't stand by and do nothing. A younger brother must protect his elder brother, and a loyal subject must protect his monarch. Although Catelyn tried hard to dissuade him, Ned's mind was made up. Lisa sent the letter to Ned for a few reasons. Firstly, Ned was Jon Arryn's foster son. Secondly, Lisa was Catelyn's own sister. Family members could be trusted. Let's clarify the relationships here. From Jon Arryn's side, Ned called Jon Arryn his foster father and Lisa his foster mother. From Catelyn's perspective, Lisa was her sister, and Ned was her husband. Each relationship was valid in its own way. The next day, Robert and Ned went hunting in the mountains. Ned's second son, Bran Stark, was climbing a wall to watch his father leave. But this climb led to a disaster. He stumbled upon Cersei and Jaime having sex in a secluded room. Jaime stopped what he was doing and came before Bran. "Raho things I do for love." Bran remained unconscious. Cersei feigned compassion. Tyrion suggested Joffrey also go to offer condolences, but Joffrey refused. He was then subjected to a triple rebuke from his uncle, who was also his mother's brother. "I'm telling mother you can't." When the day of departure arrived, the large party rode out of Winterfell, splitting into two groups. One group headed south back to King's Landing. Ned took his two daughters. It was just mentioned that the eldest daughter, Sansa, was to marry Joffrey to become queen one day. The younger daughter, Arya Stark, often called Arya, was mainly going to the capital for a trip. The other group headed north to the Wall. There were 5 people in total: Tyrion, 2 bodyguards, Jon Snow, and Benjen Stark. Benjen was Ned's biological brother. He was also the first ranger of the Night's Watch. He had returned for the welcome feast a few days ago. Among Ned's 7 children, Jon Snow had the best relationship with Benjen. He asked Uncle Benjen to intercede with Ned, to allow him to join the Night's Watch. It seemed Ned had agreed. As for Tyrion going to the Wall, it was to experience being a hero. Jon Snow said goodbye to Ned. He wanted to know some information about his mother. Ned promised to tell him next time they met. It was settled. "I promise." All of the above occurred in Winterfell in the north. This storyline is designated as the Northern Storyline. The initial White Walker attack happened north of the north, in the vicinity of the Wall. Jon Snow and others were also heading to the Wall. This storyline is designated as the Wall Storyline. There are too many storylines in the whole game. It's best to clarify them from the start to avoid confusion. First, let's look at the large group heading south. The road they took was called the King's Road. It stretched from the Wall in the north, passed through the north and the Riverlands, and arrived at King's Landing. It extended south to Storm's End in the Stormlands. During a rest stop along the way, Joffrey and Sansa were bonding. Arya was sparring with the butcher's boy. Joffrey wanted to show off his sword, forcing the butcher's boy to fight. The butcher's boy didn't dare fight back. Arya stood up for him. Joffrey fought unfairly and knocked Arya down. Arya's direwolf, Nymeria, entered the scene. The Paw Patrol saved the day. No. No. Afterward, Cersei put Arya on trial. Arya and Joffrey each told their version of events. Witness Sansa deliberately lied to support Joffrey. Sansa was indeed a bit naive. Finally, Robert put his foot down, saying, "Enough squabbling. Let's move on from this." Cersei disagreed. "The people can be spared, the wolf must be punished." Arya, with foresight, had already released, or rather, chased away, Nymeria. Therefore, Sansa's direwolf, Lady, became the scapegoat. The butcher's boy, who was practicing with Arya, escape the Lannisters' clutches. He was killed by Joffrey's personal guard, the Hound. The butcher's boy. Iran. Not very fast. The large party rode into King's Landing, beginning the 3rd storyline of the 1st season of the show, and the central stage for the entire series. King's Landing. King's Landing is the capital of the 7 kingdoms. The capital region is called the Crownlands. The Starks entered the Red Keep, the royal palace. Ned was immediately summoned to the small council meeting. Jaime stepped forward to mock him. Today was his home turf, so his verbal jabs were even stronger than when he was in Winterfell. To understand the content of their conversation, some background information is needed. 16 years ago, during the late stages of Robert's rebellion, the Dragon Prince was killed by Robert. Rhaegar's father, the king, was assassinated by a Kingsguard knight. That Kingsguard knight was 17-year-old Jaime. At the time, the Mad King was at his wits' end. He ordered Jaime to burn down all of King's Landing with wildfire, so that everyone in the city would die with him. Jaime disobeyed the order. He stabbed the Mad King from behind. Coincidentally, just as Jaime had killed the Mad King, Ned arrived. From Ned's perspective, Jaime, as a Kingsguard knight, had broken his vows and assassinated the king. He was a kingslayer with no honor. Therefore, Ned despised Jaime. Frankly, if Jaime hadn't assassinated the Mad King but instead carried out the Mad King's command, everyone in King's Landing at that time would have died. There wouldn't even be a Ned to despise Jaime. However, the stubborn and proud Jaime refused to explain himself. Perhaps an explanation wouldn't have helped anyway. Jaime adamantly refused to accept the Kingslayer label. Besides, weren't you and Robert also rebels? He might think, what right do you have to despise me? Both men had their own reasons, and both had their flaws. This was the fundamental reason for Jaime's animosity. Ned arrived at the small council meeting. The small council consisted of the highest-ranking leaders of the 7 kingdoms. Apart from the king, there were usually 7 members. The King's Hand, also known as the Prime Minister, the Master of Whisperers, the Master of Laws, the Master of Coin, the Grand Maester and the Master of Ships, the Lord Commander of the King's Guard. Ned was there to serve as the King's Hand. Becoming Hand was his official task. Unofficially, he had 2 other tasks: guard against and the protect Lannisters. Robert. He also had to investigate the truth behind Jon Arryn's death. The second member was the Master of Whisperers. His nickname was the Spider. He was commonly called Old Varys. Varys lacked one thing a normal man possessed. Yes, that. The third member was the Master of Laws, Renly Baratheon. He was Robert's youngest brother. He also served as Lord of Storm's End. Renly had a particular hobby. He preferred men. The fourth member was the Master of Coin, Peter Baelish. His nickname was Littlefinger. Littlefinger unilaterally considered Ned his rival in love. This, again, was a story from the past. Littlefinger's ancestral home was the Fingers. From a young age, he was fostered by the Lord of the Riverlands, Duke Hoster Tully of Riverrun. Took him in as a ward. Hoster Tully was commonly called Old Tully. He was Catelyn's father and Ned's father-in-law. Old Tully had 3 children of his own. The eldest, Catelyn, the second, Lisa, and the youngest, Edmure. Littlefinger grew up in the Tully household. Over time, a love triangle developed between him and the 2 sisters. Lisa loved Littlefinger. Littlefinger loved Catelyn, but Catelyn felt nothing for Littlefinger. Later, Catelyn was betrothed to Brandon Stark, the eldest son of the North and Ned's elder brother. Littlefinger bravely challenged Brandon Stark, Ned's elder brother, he ended up getting severely beaten by him. Littlefinger lost the battle and was heartbroken, drinking heavily late at night. He then had a drunken encounter with Lisa, whom he didn't love, and got her pregnant with one shot. Soon after, the affair came to light. Old Tully drove Littlefinger away and made Lisa drink moon tea to get rid of the unwanted trouble. Afterwards, the Mad King executed Ned's father and brother. Jon Arryn, with his 2 foster sons, started a rebellion. They hoped to gain the support of the Riverlands and Stormlands. In exchange, Ned married Old Tully's eldest daughter, who was Robert's former fiancée, Catelyn. The thrice-married Jon Arryn married Old Tully's second daughter, Lisa, who Littlefinger had deflowered. Thus, the North, the Vale, the Riverlands, and the Stormlands formed a 4-region alliance. As for Littlefinger, emotionally, he was hit twice by House Stark. He became a professional Stark hater from then on. Later, Robert became king and appointed Jon Arryn as Hand. Littlefinger and Lisa still maintained contact, and through Lisa, using Jon Arryn's connections, he made great strides in his official career, eventually rising to become Master of Coin. The 5th Grand Maester, Pycelle, is generally called the Imperial Preceptor or Old Pycelle. Besides having sufficient knowledge, his stamina was also quite sufficient. Old Pycelle presented the Hand's badge. Ned officially took office. The other 2, the Lord Commander of the King's Guard and the Master of Ships, were absent. We won't discuss them for now. The main topic of this meeting was the tourney. The tourney was equivalent to Westeros Olympic Games. It was held whenever there was a royal celebration, such as a new king's ascension, a prince's birth, and so on. A tourney was also arranged for Ned's appointment. This proved his standing in Robert's heart. After the meeting, Littlefinger brought Ned to his establishment, an unofficial massage parlor. 2 Northerners, Catelyn and her companion, arrived at the establishment. It turned out that after Ned left, his second son, Bran, was attacked by an assassin. Bran's dire wolf, Summer, saved him by killing the assassin. The Woof team once again performed a great service. Catelyn, previously, found a golden hair at the place where Jaime had pushed Bran. The audience knows it was Cersei's. Catelyn thus suspected the Lannisters. First, the golden hair most likely belonged to a Lannister. Second, her sister Lisa had written in her letter that the Lannisters were plotting against the king. Perhaps they were also targeting House Stark. For this reason, Catelyn and her companion brought the assassin's Valyrian steel dagger to King's Landing to deliver a message to Ned. As soon as they entered the city, Littlefinger took them to his establishment. Littlefinger had already helped Catelyn solve the case. He said the current owner of the Valyrian steel dagger was Tyrion Lannister. Catelyn was already suspicious of the Lannisters, and Littlefinger was her childhood friend. Catelyn thus concluded that Tyrion Lannister was the one who tried to kill Bran. I won't forget this. You're a true friend. Since the case was solved, Catelyn and her companion decided to return home. Before leaving, Catelyn instructed Ned, saying he could trust Littlefinger unconditionally, and could ask him for help to investigate the truth behind Jon Arryn's death. The couple found it hard to part. Who knew when they would see each other again?
Off with you.
Ned was busy with his official duties, while also investigating the cause of Jon Arryn's death. Grand Maester Pycelle said, Jon Arryn had borrowed a book from him before he died. It was a genealogy of the prominent noble houses of the Seven Kingdoms. Ned found nothing unusual. Littlefinger provided 2 clues. Clue 1 stated that Jon Arryn's squire was somewhat suspicious. But before Ned could investigate the squire further, he was killed in the first round of the tourney. His opponent was named Gregor Clegane, nicknamed the Mountain, Tywin Lannister's personal guard, and the Hound's older brother. Clue 2 stated that before Jon Arryn died, he often visited a blacksmith's shop in the city. Ned personally visited. He discovered that Jon Arryn came to see a young blacksmith. Ned examined him carefully. This must be Robert's bastard son. His name is Gendry, nicknamed Big Bull. Given Robert's wild and unrestrained personality, it was very normal for him to have bastards among the common folk. But Jon Arryn's death had no connection to Gendry. Ned still returned empty-handed. On the final day of the tourney, the Mountain fought against the handsome Loras Tyrell, nicknamed the Knight of Flowers. The Knight of Flowers was Robert's master of laws, Renly's paramour. The duel began. With one charge, the Knight of Flowers unhorsed the Mountain. It wasn't that the Mountain was too weak, but that the Knight of Flowers' horse was in heat. The Mountain's horse was overly excited, causing the Mountain to lose his balance and the match. The Mountain cleaved his warhorse with a single sword his sword at the Knight of Flowers, fighting on the ground, was no match. The Hound rushed onto the field to fight his older brother. The 2 brothers had not yet settled the score. A halt. The Hound obediently knelt. The Mountain, displeased, leaving the field meant forfeiting. The championship belonged to the Knight of Flowers thanked him for saving his life. He raised the Hound's left hand, implying the championship was his. Just like that, the Hound essentially won the championship, and took the championship incidentally. So, why did the Hound help the Knight of Flowers fight his older brother? This story goes back to when the 2 brothers were children. Back then, 7-year-old Hound secretly played with a toy the Mountain had discarded. The Mountain, enraged, pressed the Hound's face directly into a brazier. The Hound's hellish scarred half-face was thanks to his older brother. In the years that followed, the Mountain was suspected of killing his father and wife, and committed rape and murder multiple times, especially at the end of Robert's rebellion. The Mountain, with the main Lannister forces, occupied and bloodied the Red Keep. He smashed the former Crown Prince Rhaegar's infant son to death, and raped and murdered Rhaegar's wife. For such an older brother, the Hound was irreconcilably opposed to him. The tourney concluded. Varys sent intelligence to Ned, saying Jon Arryn was poisoned. The poison was called Tears of Lys. Colorless, odorless, and killed invisibly. As for who did it, he didn't know. Perhaps Varys knew, but couldn't say. Varys bid farewell to Ned, and went to the Red Keep's secret tunnels to meet a guest. The guest was from the East Continent. He was the Magister of Pentos, named Illyrio. Their conversation was speculative. Briefly, they were strategizing a major plan, orchestrating the Targaryen restoration behind the scenes. Now we know. Varys outwardly pledged allegiance to House Baratheon, but in reality had his own agenda. So Varys was a hidden player lurking beneath the table of the Game of Thrones. So how exactly did Varys and the Magister operate? Now we begin the 4th storyline, Daenerys. Daenerys is the female lead of the series. For the entire first 6 seasons, her story takes place on the East Continent. As mentioned before, in 283 AC, House Targaryen fell from power. Rose to power. House Targaryen's kingdom fell, but its line was not extinguished. The Mad King's eldest son, Rhaegar, was killed by Robert. The Mad King's wife fled to Dragonstone with her youngest son. 9 months later, in 284 AC, a baby daughter was Daenerys born. Targaryen. She was the later Daenerys. The Mad King's wife died in childbirth. The day she died was also during a storm. Little Dany received her first title upon birth, Stormborn. After Robert ascended the throne, he ordered the pursuit of the Mad King's surviving children. Sent the 2 siblings to Pentos on the East Continent. The older brother was named Viserys Targaryen. During their 16 years in Pentos, the older brother always dreamed of being king, calling himself Viserys III, or V3 for short. In the world of Ice and Fire, adding the number, th to a name is exclusive to kings. Theoretically, the older brother was indeed Viserys III. Exiled version. To become the true Viserys III, he had to fight back and reclaim the 7 kingdoms. But he had neither dragons nor an army. His only resource was his younger sister, Little Dany. He wanted to trade Little Dany for money and an army. So, under the Magister of Pentos arrangements, Little Dany had a blind date today. The man was a Dothraki, a nomadic people. He was the leader of a nomadic tribe. His title was Khal. His real name was Drogo. He was generally called the Horse King, not the Sea King. The Horse King was very satisfied with little Dany and quickly arranged the wedding. In Dothraki custom, the Khale's wife holds the title of Khaleesi. Thus, little Dany also gained her second title, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea. A compatriot from her homeland presented a gift. His name was Jorah Mormont. He was generally called Great Bear. The Magister also presented a grand gift, 3 dragon eggs, fossilized. It seemed they could only be used as art pieces. After several rounds of drinks, the auspicious time had arrived. The Horse King rose and took little Dany to the seaside to proceed to the next step. Can you not pixelate it? No. Can you not edit it? No. Can you show the original scene? No. Motherfucker, motherfucker, motherfucker. The Horse King's wedding was complete. He led his team away from Pentos, heading to the Horse City, V's Dothrak. Little Dany, following Dothraki custom, and Viserys, V3, also traveled with the procession. He wanted to keep an eye on the Horse King to see when he would help him invade. During their journey, little Dany learned skills from her handmaiden, Doria. She immediately put her new knowledge to use, conquering the Horse King with one move. Soon, little Dany was pregnant. Her status further improved. In contrast, Viserys, V3, fared worse and worse. He wasn't very capable, but his temper was huge. And he even resorted to violence against little Dany. He was beaten up by little Dany's personal guard.
Walk.
The horse troop finally arrived at Horse City. Viserys, V3, again lost his temper. Little Dany couldn't stand it any longer. She finally resisted. I'm the wife of the Great Khal, and I carry his child. If you raise a hand to me, it will be the last time you have hands. To completely win over the Horse King, little Dany began the ultimate challenge, eating a raw horse heart. This was also a Dothraki custom. If a Khaleesi completed this feat, it symbolized that the child in her womb would be like its father, brave and wise, and skilled in battle, dominating the plains. Red. Daenerys succeeded. The Horse King was greatly honored. In contrast, Viserys, V3, became redundant. He tried to steal dragon eggs but was stopped by Jorah. Then, he caused a ruckus at the horse troops' dinner while drunk. The Horse King ignored him, but didn't drive him away either. His seat was just a bit further away. Viserys, V3, felt offended. So he drew his sword and pointed it at Jorah. Little Dany stepped forward to stop him. Viserys, V3, continued arrogantly, my demands aren't high. When will I get the crown you promised me? The Horse King spoke, I will give you a crown right now. The Horse King ordered his men to seize him, and with the other hand, he took off his gold belt and put it into a crucible. Turned into liquid. The crown Viserys, V3, had always dreamed of was cast.
Crown for king.
This activated Daenerys' ambition to take over and retake the 7 kingdoms. But for the Horse King, living a life of luxury and ease on the East Continent, there was no need to launch a distant invasion. So even though Daenerys ate the raw horse heart, the Horse King was still unwilling to invade. However, an accident changed the Horse King's mind. One day, as Daenerys was shopping, a wine merchant proactively offered Daenerys a barrel of wine. Jorah felt something was wrong. The wine might be poisoned. The wine merchant refused to drink it first to prove it. He ran off immediately. It was a trap after all. Jorah captured the wine merchant. He saved Daenerys and performed a great service. This assassination attempt triggered the Khal's rage. I didn't provoke you. But you provoked me first. For the Khaleesi and the child, the Khal decided to cross the sea and invade. He would conquer Westeros. A summer sun. So, the question is, was the assassination an accident or a conspiracy? How did Jorah know the wine was poisoned? It's not explicitly stated in the show. Combining various sources of information, that this assassination was likely planned by Varys. Varys and Magister Illyrio were childhood friends. Back then, they both made a living in Essos. One was a thief. One was an assassin. They teamed up and steadily built their influence. The Magister rose from humble beginnings to become a city lord. Varys became an information magnate. He managed a large network of informants. They were called the Little Birds. The information magnate became famous abroad and was appointed and highly paid to become the master of whisperers in Westeros. Therefore, in both the 7 kingdoms and Essos, in the realm of intelligence, Varys was the absolute authority. After the regime change, Robert recognized Varys' abilities. He continued to employ him, and Varys himself came from a poor background. He cared deeply for the common people. He only wished for a king who would treat his people like his own children. But the former Targaryen king was a scoundrel. The new king, Robert, was no better. So, Varys secretly conceived the hidden dragon plan. Namely, to support the remaining Targaryen, Viserys. He hoped that Viserys would be a good king in the future. That's why the Magister of Pentos sheltered them and helped Daenerys meet the Khal. All of this was preparation for the Targaryen siblings to reclaim the Seven Kingdoms. At the same time, to accurately track the Targaryen siblings' movements, Varys also placed a spy by Daenerys' side. That was Jorah Mormont. Sir Jorah Mormont of Bear Island has served your father for many years. Jorah also has a story of his own. His father, Jeor Mormont, is the current Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. The Lord Commander's previous role was Lord of Bear Island. So, their nicknames are Old Bear and Jorah, Great Bear. When Jorah was young, he once fought Jaime to a draw in a tourney and was declared the champion by Robert. Jorah became famous overnight. He married his second wife, Lena Headey. Unexpectedly, his second wife was incredibly extravagant. Jorah quickly squandered his family's fortune. He was heavily in debt. To pay his debts, Jorah began selling poachers into slavery. This act violated the laws of the Seven Kingdoms. Jorah was sentenced to death by Ned Stark. To save their lives, Jorah and his wife fled to Essos. He thought they could start anew. But unexpectedly, his second wife quickly found a rich patron. She abandoned Jorah and left. Jorah was once again a lone man. He wanted to go home but couldn't. Just then, Varys needed a spy. So, it was a mutually beneficial arrangement. Varys promised Jorah a royal pardon. Jorah, in turn, provided Varys with intelligence on the Targaryen siblings. Everything was going smoothly. The Khal kept refusing to launch his invasion. Varys was also getting anxious. So he reported the news of Daenerys' pregnancy to Robert. In a fit of rage, Robert issued a kill order. And so, Varys orchestrated the assassination while simultaneously tipping off Jorah. That's why Jorah was able to expose the wine merchant in time and save Daenerys. Varys' plan was very successful. The Khal finally took action. The Khal's main army moved southward from Bees Duthrak towards the coast. They launched a large-scale raid near Lazer. They seized women and children to sell for money to expand their military supplies. Mainly to buy ships. Daenerys felt great compassion. She saved a group of women. Mercy is not wrong, but it broke the rules. She took away the warrior's spoils. A warrior raised an objection. The Khal forcefully stood up for Daenerys. The warrior rebelled on the spot, challenging his authority. The Khal dueled him. He let himself take an initial hit. I gave you your chance, but you were useless. The initial wound the Khal took was to his chest. Daenerys wanted to treat the Khal. Coincidentally, there was a captive skilled in medicine. She was a temple priestess, referred to as the Great Immortal. It would have been better if Mary Masdor hadn't treated him. Things went wrong. Became infected. The poison spread throughout his body, and he fell off his horse. Was finished. He suggested Daenerys evacuate. Daenerys firmly refused to leave. She asked Mary Masdor to cure the Khal. Mary Masdor also believed the Khal was indeed finished, unless she used the long-lost art of blood magic. A life for a life. No human life is needed. Exchanging a horse will suffice.
Bring him back to me.
One of the Khal's blood riders thought it was wrong. He wanted to stop Mary Masdor. Jorah stepped in, saying, "You'll have to go through me if you want to interfere." With the help of his armor, Jorah won the duel. At the same time, Daenerys suffered from incessant abdominal pain. Coincidentally, Mary Masdor also knew how to deliver babies. Then let's give Mary Masdor another task. After a night, Daenerys woke up to find her child was gone. The boy did not live. "Tell me, what is it to tell? How did my son die?" Mary Masdor began to explain. She claimed that Jorah had burst into the tent carrying Daenerys midway through the ritual, interfering with the blood magic. This changed it to using Daenerys' child's life to save the Khal's life. The Khal's life was indeed saved, but his mind was gone. In fact, Mary Masdor was specifically targeting the Khal. The Khal's people killed her people, destroyed her temple, ravaged her homeland. So Mary Masdor wanted revenge on the Khal. Most of the warriors chose to leave. This is also a Dothraki tradition. Once a Khal is no longer capable, his followers will seek out or follow another Khal. Daenerys was completely devastated. She made two decisions. First, to smother the Khal. She didn't want him to live without dignity. Second, to join the Khal on his final journey. Jorah tried to stop her, but Daenerys' mind was made up.
I won't watch you burn.
Is that what you fear?
Jorah had come to Daenerys as Varys' spy. He came to Daenerys' side. His main job was to report back. But unexpectedly, he was deeply attracted by Daenerys' beauty. Now Jorah had fallen in love with Daenerys. Daenerys understood this too. So she gave him a kiss. Daenerys delivered her final speech. Taking 3 dragon eggs, she would reunite with the Khal and her child. Of course, Mary Masdor must accompany them to the pyre. Accompanied by Mary Masdor's wails, Daenerys walked into the raging flames without looking back. Daenerys died just like that. Of course not. After a night, Daenerys' clothes burned to ashes. But she was completely unharmed. Indeed, a true dragon is not afraid of fire. Daenerys was the true dragon. At the same time, in her arms, at her feet, and on her shoulders, 3 small creatures clung to her. Looking closely, they were dragons. The 3 petrified dragon eggs had miraculously hatched. After more than 140 years, great magic had reappeared in the world. Jorah and the few remaining followers collectively knelt to welcome their new master. Now Daenerys could officially be called the Mother of Dragons.